Jayne! Cats.
Yeah, that's the downside. We've got 3 of them.
Nice. What a beautiful cat.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
When I got into newspapers, that's when the passion really developed for photography. And I can't say that it was singularly the photography so much as the whole situation. So, you know, it became so exciting to be involved in frontline news. And so the satisfaction of being involved in that, having inside information on what was going on, seeing your picture then in the paper the next day, that became a real driving force.
Real rush.
It's really, yeah. It's something, and something that you never get over. If you've got that, you never get over it.
Oh,
you
wow.
always have it for life. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Japanese rugby. Rugby in Japan.
Ireland playing rugby in Japan.
Ireland. Okay,
Yeah.
Good. So,
rugby has been a real thing since I've come to Hong Kong. Did it for years, back in Australia, in England. But in England, for the newspapers in England, one of the few specialities is sport.
Yeah.
So if you're doing sport, you're only doing sport.
Yeah.
But I was on the news side, and so my sport was literally just as an add-on. So when there's big events, they'll get another couple of photographers on.
Right.
Or if I was, for instance, with Australia, if Australia commissions you to do, say, the rugby league tour of Great Britain and France, then you're just doing it as the main photographer. So, but here it's really taken off. Mm-hmm. There's so many. There has been the Sevens, then we got the World Cup, but there's a lot of Asian competitions. They've been moving around the area, and I've just fallen into doing loads more of the rugby. So
so the image is this. In the background is a very, very blurry background of the stands with a kind of light blue, whatever it is, paneling, and then you've got the green of the grass. And then the field of focus comes over, and basically the one closest to the camera, it was in super sharp focus, is running with the rugby ball. And he is mid-step. He has the arm, the very dark arm. Which team are they playing against? Well, I don't know. There's an arm sort of latched on, holding onto his hip, while the guy is essentially falling, trying to drag him down. And there's a third, it's teams. So 2 guys in green, sort of Irish green shirts. And then one guy in between with some red shirt.
I think it's Japanese.
Oh, you think he's Japanese?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you pull up the emblem on his shirt.
Okay.
If that's the pink flowers of the Japan team.
Okay, let's see if I can. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. He's got a great haircut, because it's the kind of haircut that I have. But, okay. And what city was this in?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. No. Gosh, I did so much that I went to Osaka and to Yokohama and... I'm not putting you on the spot. I think that is Yokohama.
Okay.
So just outside Tokyo.
Okay.
And I know that it was the best game.
Okay.
Ireland were favourites. So it should have been, I was working for an Irish sports agency, and there were 2 of us. They had their own Irish photographer that is employed by them the whole time, and they flew him out, and he was working for the actual Irish Rugby Union. So he had a different kind of list of things he had to get each day.
Right.
He travelled with the team. He was in the dressing room with the team, all this type of thing. And I was just then the field photographer to make sure that he'd come out at the last minute and then join me on the field. But it was the most spectacular game. Remember, the whole audience is virtually Japanese because they get advanced sales, ticket purchases. It's a Japanese game, so they really love rugby. So they really wanted to see Japan win. But Ireland were the favourites, and Japan were far from the favourites.
Right.
But the home team advantage with that crowd, Japan won.
Oh, wow.
And you just had to say it was the most spectacular thing.
Wow.
It was the best match that I saw the whole competition because the fans just went insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
That's amazing.
And Ireland realised how important this was to rugby.
Yeah.
And Japanese rugby.
Sure.
It was beyond who won and who lost. And then Ireland actually in the end didn't make it through.
Right.
But that was just spectacular.
Huh. Cool.
The fans are 100%. They're like the South Stand without the costuming of the South Stand, but the enthusiasm of 100% into the rugby.
Wow. So, if you're shooting, offhand, what is the lens that you shoot when you're doing this kind of stuff? A 500 millimeter?
No, actually, because I'm not a full-time sports photographer, I've actually got a 200 to 400 zoom.
Okay, 4K.
Which then becomes a more versatile lens if I actually am doing some news.
Yeah.
So in the past, I did have a 500, but I had a manual 500 when I was, again, doing more. Right. But I can't justify it now. So at worst, I would put a 1.4 converter on it.
Yeah. That's...
which in the quality of newspapers and the quality of magazines, you just can't tell.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put a 2 times converter on it.
Yeah.
The 2 times converters are not up to scratch.
Sure.
There's something, they've never been able to get a 2 times correct. I've upgraded the 1.4 several times. I'm onto the latest model all the time because it works perfectly.
So for the people who aren't photographers who are listening, this is essentially you put a smaller lens. So let's say a 400 millimeter zoom, okay, goes up to 400 millimeters, which is a way of just narrowing the field so you can see really up close, like such as in this photograph. And the converter is a thing that you put between the lens and the camera body that is just a few centimeters thick. It looks almost like a hockey puck, only a little bit smaller. It's got some glass inside, and it, for example, turns the 400 to a 800, 600?
It's 600.
600.
Yeah, roughly 600.
Right. The 2 time would be 800. Yeah. Okay, so 600 millimeter. So what is it like? You get sent on these shoots. You go to Japan. Are you given a...
Well, I'm freelance.
Okay, so it's on your own dime.
So it's on my own dime and then I get paid. So, but, you don't go unless you've got a commission.
Right.
Obviously. And then the commission has to be... But you have to work out how you work out your expenses.
Sure.
You don't get the job necessarily if you charge them the actual cost of the expenses. Okay. So you don't also go just for one company.
Right.
So I've only gone to Japan because I've got out of that, I know that I've got a commission from the Irish rugby and the Irish agency. I know I've got a commission from an agency in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. I know I've got avenues for Wales.
Yeah.
Wales is not a full commission. It's kind of a bit less. And England.
Right.
And then once you've got the access, so if you're there, then you're doing as many games as you possibly can.
Right.
And at that point, I also have agents that I send it to.
Yeah.
So anything that I've shot goes somewhere. But I've got a core expenses page.
Sure.
So they're not seeing me putting in hotel bills. They're not seeing me putting in food bills. They're not seeing
it gets
any
spread
of that.
out. So
it gets spread out, and I have to at the end of it say I made the right amount of money.
Right.
I covered my expenses. I made the amount of money. And again, that's how I did the World Cup basketball in China as well. I go there. I only went there on the basis of having the commissions from various places.
Yeah.
And once it ticks over the right amount of commissions, then I go.
Okay. See, this is the it's also fascinating in its own way. Like, as a business consultant, which is what I do, I've spent a long time speaking with entrepreneurs and small, medium, large, huge companies. So it's, like Julia talked about how eventually moving into photography, and she really spoke as a business owner. Mm. And listening to you describe, do you want some water? Have some water.
That's right.
I want you to feel like this is your house.
Feel at home.
I want you to feel completely comfortable, like...
I think that is the major failing of education in photography.
Okay.
It is a business.
Yeah.
And if you don't run it as a business, you're shortchanging yourself.
And you're probably going to fail, or you're going to have. Well, one of the things
that is every time you go out for a job, it is not that you're spending 1 hour with that person.
Yeah.
It is spending 1 hour with that person, but you've taken $250,000 worth of gear out to that job.
Yeah.
You've insured yourself to make sure that anything that happens on that job is covered.
Sure.
So whether you gear or whether it's third party or whatever, you're covered to be there. You're then accommodating for the amount of time that it takes you once you get back.
Yeah.
It is your life.
Yeah.
So every hour that you take out of your life with your family has to be accounted for. Like any other job that you would turn up to an office for 8 hours and be paid for 8 hours. Just because my office is then back at my house for 2 hours of post-production or 1 hour of post-production, that is still my work.
It's
so
still
it
time.
has to still be accommodated for.
100%.
So when you're charging a client, that has to be all incorporated.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference between the business, people that are in business, as opposed to young photographers that are starting out that are still living with mum and dad and have virtually no overheads.
But yeah, so
you have to, everything is accommodated in that.
But so like with the Hong Kong bird in the background sending us off, we've covered the photos and like I kind of like the ideas of what is failure, what is a setback, what is a nightmare. So can you think of a time where, as a business owner, as a photographer who does incredible images, but who's also essentially a small business of you incorporated, where you're your own brand, can you describe a time that was really kind of difficult, almost painful, but you learned so much?
How's about 2020? The entire 2020.
Yeah.
I was always employed, full-time employed when I was in Australia.
Okay.
When I left and went to England, I was always freelance.
Oh, okay.
I did a couple of contracts for different newspapers, but basically they had overturned the whole business. They had virtually stripped their staff down to one sports photographer, one head news photographer.
Right.
And everyone else was freelance.
Uh-huh.
So you learnt very early in the piece that the only way to look after number one was make sure that you had some savings tucked away. So every time you're doing it, you've got to create the buffer. And that is, there's been several times, say 2008. 2008 happens, stock market crashes, Murdoch as a group of newspapers just says, and Sky News, suddenly everybody is cut. And it was so dramatic once that basically any single person that was not on staff was removed.
Wow.
So you've gone from 5 days work a week to 0.
Right.
And you have to really let the dust settle on something as big as the 2008.
Yeah.
For them to then turn around and start phoning you back again.
Yeah.
So that was, those types of times always remind you that it's really difficult.
As a last bit of advice that I could give and share. No, it's fine. Look, hi, cats. How you doing?
Cats have
As we're talking,
place.
the cats are now coming in over, stepping on everything. It's great. Last bit of advice that I would give from my work as, in other businesses, is that it's kind of like every startup is, you kind of have to invent your own or design. There's no kit that you kind of buy off the shelf and then plug it in and then there you go, it works, as far as a small business. And in a way, I'm sure your evolution as a business owner, as a photographer, is your kind of fits and starts of making mistakes, learning from them, and essentially crafting your own career. But somebody couldn't mimic you, you know what I mean? Like,
no, it's really hard because if you've got, everyone has certain rules by which they'd operate.
Mm-hmm.
And straight away, it's antisocial, the hours.
Right.
Very antisocial.
Right.
And if you think that you will do a job and get a lovely lunch break and get a lovely dinner break and get a lovely time for a cup of coffee, you're dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
you work really intensely for X number of hours, but then you know the next day you're not. So it's an understanding of what the job entails.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Saturday night. It is a 15-hour day here. It's a 20-hour day the next, because you've done the shoot during the day, and then you've got to go post-production for something, into the night, so it's ready for the next day or whatever. It's just the reality of the day-to-day.
And
but then on the other balance is, then you'll get another day where you're paid for a short job and it's done, and then you've got the rest of your day with your family.
And you're standing in front of the Queen.
Yeah.
Taking your photo, going like, this is different.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
For me, with newspapers and everything, the access to the most amazing things has been one of the big draws.
Right.
And that's not the celebrity side of it. It's also the side of lifting the rock effectively on society in the places that you live.
Right.
Because you could go about your business and just not notice.
Yeah.
Not have anything to do with any of this.
Yeah.
But because your job requires it, you end up in really unusual situations, places, and you get to see
one step removed of Snowden.
So much more.
Did you end up meeting Snowden or no?
No.
But it was like one step removed.
Yeah. They managed to get him out.
Wow.
So,
Whew.
yeah.
Jayne.
Yeah, it's been very fascinating. I mean, I'd recommend it to anyone.
Well, yeah. Well, you delivered.
Absolutely, yeah. Anyone.
Oh,
but,
dude.
I mean, I've still got the press is still the huge thing.
Yeah.
Still obsessed with that.
Wow.
Still got the passion for that. But the money in Hong Kong, the jobs day to day, for me is more events.
Yeah.
Which obviously means zero
right now,
at the moment.
Yeah.
I do other things.
Sure.
So that's fine. But the big jobs I do are all events.
A big thank you.
Okay.
I love meeting people who do photography, and this is great.
Thank you.
Cup. So, is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So, if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.